Hey, so today I'm eating salmon for the first time. I've never eaten salmon in my life. I'm 38 years old. So I cooked this salmon I didn't know what I was doing, so I cooked it in garlic and butter. That seemed like a pretty safe way to do it. I chose salmon because I'm probably not getting enough of those ocean-based nutrients like omega 3s and things like that. I mean, I do eat chia seeds a lot, but I know it's more bioavailable in animal flesh. So yeah, we're gonna eat this, and I also made a big salad, which is just like rocket, capsicum, and tomato with olive oil over it. And I cooked this in butter and garlic, and then with some avocado oil to get a bit of a fry up going. I'm trying to move towards the better oils. Just I'm in that stage, I'm in that's I'm almost 40. I'm scared of dying. I just got to grab a fork. Now I've got the Kaiser slicer if I need it, but I'm hoping I can just bust this guy apart with my fork and see how it tastes. It's kind of portions off pretty nicely. I like fish nowhere near as much as I like red meat or poultry, which is why I barely eat it. There's just that it's the fish flavor. You either like it or you don't. This isn't bad. It doesn't taste like much. It just kind of tastes like pretty bland. I know this is probably me cooking. I'm sure you can cook salmon amazingly. Fairly bland with just that fishiness to it. Not repugnant by any sense, but yeah, you're definitely I think paying because it is quite expensive. It's about $50 a kilo for salmon. These two pieces. The other piece I'm going to have for dinner tonight. Um, this was I think about $14 for like 250 grams of salmon, so a fair bit. So anyway. The garlic and the butter is good on the first. Mm. Mm. This is definitely this would be like a once a week thing for me, I think, just for the nutrients. Don't think I would choose this. So for something that's super healthy, it's definitely a neutral flavored thing. Um, I could do that once a week pretty happily for the benefits. Have a couple hundred grams of salmon per week if I can afford it. Um, yeah, and also I'm going to review this Kaiser slicer knife because this got sent to me from Kaiser, and it's a little bit of an odd duck. I've used this off and on for a few months now. Sorry, Kaiser, for not being super prompt with my review, but had some other things going on, and also I wanted to give it a fair shake. What's unique about the Kaiser slicer is that it's a modern lockback knife. So it's a thumb stud lockback knife which has like the walk and talk of a more classic lockback style. So boasting Nitro V steel, 3.5-inch blade, and a quite slicey grind. I've used the Kaiser slicer, and I certainly have some thoughts. Alrighty, so I'm going to try and be brief. I'm going to try and keep this as like a 10-minute video, of course, with a luxuriant first 3 minutes of me talking mainly about fish. Obviously. The Kaiser Slicer hasn't particularly impressed me. It doesn't seem like it's good enough at any particular job, and it has a couple of annoyances that sort of bog it down from even just being universally recommendable as a knife for anybody. Now, when you call a knife the Slicer, I think it should be one of the best slicing knives you've had. This is a good slicer, but I wouldn't call this the slicer. It's not the most memorable feature of this knife. The most memorable feature of this knife is, in fact, the weird walk and talk, old-timey two-stage lockback mechanism of the blade. In fact, the actual cutting performance of the knife is just profoundly middle of the road, mid even. God, lemon water, salmon. You can tell who's been watching Dr. Eric Berg. He's not all pseudoscience. Look, if you follow Dr. Berg, the worst thing you're going to come across is eating a few vegetables you'd never heard of. I truly, I know a lot of it's a bit sort of airy-fairy, and I'm not going to get into fluoride or seed oils specifically, but you know what? There's some good stuff there. Anyway, yeah, so a good slicing knife for sure, but I wouldn't call this the slicer. I'd call this like the walker or something like that, because it's the walk and talk that really juts out as memorable to me. And unfortunately, that's not really something that I like a great deal. See, a lockback knife, I'm absolutely fine with. You could almost say the lockback is my favorite type of knife lock, but that's when it goes hand in hand with a smooth deployment. You know my favorite knife. You watch this channel, you know my favorite knife. It's the Spyderco Stretch 2. And that is a smooth deploying knife. Absolutely. And yeah, as such, it's got that simplicity of a lockback. You can give that knife to anyone. They can open and close it one-handed. They can flick it shut. All that good stuff. But I think this one would stump someone. And even me, a seasoned knife user, has had a couple little instances where I've kind of fumbled the opening because the walk and talk has caught me by surprise. You just don't expect walk and talk with a modern folding knife. So yeah, just a little interesting point there, and that really to me is the main point of interest on this knife, because really what else you're getting is a knife that's roughly the same size and weight as the Paramilitary 2. It's got, Nitro V steel, which is a good steel, but it's definitely the steel at the moment for any knife that's aiming at about the $100 or less price point from these larger Chinese manufacturers. So all that stuff is good, I guess. Overall, this is a good knife, but it definitely ain't no slicing specialist. It cuts and it slices fine, but for this to be a slicing specialist, you need to make that blade stock a little bit thinner, or you need to make it a hollow grind. A hollow grind will truly slice anything. A hollow grind has a nice little air gap, breaking the surface tension between tacky materials. Like when you're cutting cheese, you just don't get the stick. So with this knife not being the best slicer, or even in like the top 10 of slicers, what it's left being is a competent 3.5-inch-ish folding knife that actually has a bit of a weird user learnable, new muscle memory style opening that I think most people are going to be at least initially a bit put off by. So it does seem to be kind of self-limiting in its lack of speciality, and it's put a lot of its points into this sort of trad style, walk and talk, opening blade tang sort of interface. And I just don't know why you would have, to be honest. I don't know why they wouldn't have rounded the stock off and made it a nice, smooth Spyderco style lockback. So there you are. Look, everything else about it, the build quality's fine, check, tick. The Nitro V seems to be treated absolutely fine, tick, check, no dramas. Comes great, sharp from the factory, fabulous. Look, Kaiser are a decent knife making house. I've never really had a terrible Kaiser. I've had some unusual designs. I used to call them the Netflix of knives because they would make anything a designer came to them with. But yeah, it's just like this one here is a bit of a miss for me, guys. It's definitely not bad, but it's not good enough to really stand out or really having me choose this over basically anything else of the rough size shape in my collection. Make it lighter, make it thinner, then it's called a slicer. Another thing I don't love, the pocket clip is a little bit too flat and, aesthetically unappealing to me as well, but mainly it's flat and it doesn't sort of grab over a pocket seam, as well as the pictured Spyderco Paramilitary pocket clip does. So some examples, that's it next to the Indela, a real competitor to this guy here, given the size and kind of what it ends up being good for. The Indela is of course lighter and has a slightly thinner blade. It slices a bit better too. That's the Paramilitary 2, mainly as a size comparison. It's got a little bit more blade cutting edge than the Paramilitary 2, but I would definitely choose the Paramilitary over this one here because it doesn't open weird. That's the TRM Atom, probably my favorite folding pocket knife. That's pretty slicey as well, but again, as I've said, one of the best cutters is the Buck 110. It's the hollow grind that does it, and that thing will cut anything, even though it's a knife that's older than your grandpappy. So you look, overall, do I recommend this? If you like the idea of a rustic style walk and talk on a thumb stud, otherwise pretty modern looking pocket knife, then hey, buy with confidence, my friends, because it is, as always, from Kaiser, well assembled, well put together. It does cut good.
The ergos are absolutely fine. Not super stoked on the pocket clip, but everything else is pretty much where it needs to be. But yeah, I just don't know why you would choose this over like a Delica, for example. Because even the base Delica and the VG10, that's a steel that's going to perform fairly similar to Nitro V and edge retention. This is, of course, K390 Indela. But yeah, Indela, Endura, Delica, Stretch, those knives are all going to do this job a whole lot better. So, sorry about that one, but that's my thoughts. Just because they send it to me for free doesn't mean I'm going to say it's amazing. So that's it, guys. Hope you've enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Here is Basil.